Welcome to our presentation on the new models of film distribution. Before we talk about where the industry is today and where it is going, we should take a look at where it has been. The timeline for film distribution is a history of cultural and technology evolutions that have dramatically changed the way in which consumers experience movies. It has also changed the revenue stream opportunities for studios, with them now being able to earn revenue on a film multiple times by leveraging the expanding ways that films can be packaged for distribution. There are some significant milestones over the last 100 plus years that have changed how, where, and when people experience movies. Early Nickelodeons were soon joined by drive-in theaters as the main venues for moviegoers. But a major shift resulted from the explosion of televisions in the home, which led to the airing of theatrical movies by the mid 1950s. The 70s ushered in the era of technology and the development of Betamax and VHS, which gave way to DVDs, Blu-ray, and eventually widely available high-speed internet, which allowed a seismic shift to streaming. All of these developments changed how people viewed and studios distributed movies. There is no doubt that the model for movie distribution and consumption has changed. Theater attendance has dropped significantly from the early 1900s as television and other technologies and platforms have emerged. Even before COVID, there had been a shift to a preference of consumption from home, where it was more convenient and movies could be stopped and started around the consumer's preference. The in-person restrictions related to COVID only amplified that preference, as did improvements in home theater technology. And the increase in the availability and speed of broadband, as well as stiffer competition driving down prices, has meant that households are no longer unable to get reliable high-speed internet or be curtailed by dial-up service providers. These are just a few of the factors that have changed the film distribution landscape. Looking at the current landscape of film distribution, the pandemic has only accelerated the recent trends we have seen in the industry. The two main shifts are studios launching their own streaming services in order to compete with services like Netflix and Hulu, and the shrinking, or even skipping, of the theatrical window for some titles. More and more projects are released as premium video on demand, usually at an average price of $19.99 for a 48-hour rental, with a split of 80-20 between the studio and the platforms, if the platforms aren't already owned by the studios outright. The shrinking or complete elimination of the theatrical window has forced studios and theater chains to come up with new deals in order for both the theater chains to survive and the studios to recoup the costs related to their projects. An example of this novel thinking is the AMC Universal deal, where the theatrical window was shrunk to only 3 weekends before being available digitally, but with AMC still getting a portion of the digital revenues. More deals like this one are likely as theaters struggle to survive and studios still rely on them for significant portions of their revenue. The studios basically have four options available to them for distribution. First, they can totally replace the theatrical window with a PVOD model, as Disney did with Mulan. This is a risky strategy for high-budget films that usually perform well at the box office and where studios need theatrical release to recoup significant portions of the money spent making and marketing the films. While Disney did offer Mulan initially with a premium charge, it will make it available to all Disney Plus subscribers after a 3-month premium-only window. Studios can also choose to release in the theater for a short period of time before going to PVOD and splitting the digital release revenues with the theater chains, as was done in the recent AMC Universal model. While the studio does give up some of its revenue, this has the benefit of helping both the studio and the theater operator, as both parties need to be financially healthy to keep the current models operating. Third, they can replace the theatrical release entirely with direct-to-consumer, like Disney did with Hamilton, which didn't include any premium pricing and was free for all subscribers of Disney Plus. This is the added benefit of potentially driving new subscribers, which would be new revenue to the studio bottom line. The final option is to release theatrically before going direct to consumer, which is a hybrid approach, leveraging revenue generation from the theaters and then leveraging subscription viewership. This was the approach Disney took with Frozen 2. As studios started to experiment with release models during the pandemic, two major examples are important to highlight here. The first is Trolls World Tour, where Universal decided to release the film simultaneously theatrically and digitally before their deal with AMC as a 48-hour rental at a price point of $19.99. Universal kept 80% and the platforms 20% of the revenue, respectively. The film generated strong interest and good revenues, going straight to first place on all the major streaming platforms. The other example is Mulan, released by Disney exclusively on their Disney Plus platform and available at a major price point of $29.99. This allowed Disney to keep all revenues from it as well as increase subscribers who were eager to see the film and were unable to experience it in the theater. A theatrical release could still occur in the future. The landscape for movie consumption and distribution will continue to evolve as a result of COVID, new technology, and as studios work to better control and monetize their existing catalogs and intellectual property. Expect new platforms and distribution models to continue to develop that will still include the theater, as it's an important part of the current studio revenue models. Technology will continue to drive changes in the theater experience and movie making process. Virtual and augmented reality are only two technologies that will likely become a standard component of movies, both in production techniques as well as for the audience. Movies are already starting to emerge that leverage these technologies, and their use will grow or diminish as the audience lets its feelings be known, as it did with 3D televisions. This is an exciting area of the business, and we appreciate your time and interest. Thanks, and enjoy your movie.